Welcome back to Applied Wisdom, literature for living better, everyone. Today, we're going to be tackling a book suggested by you, our listeners. And it's one that, honestly, I got to say, has some pretty wild ideas that can really shift how you see the world. We're talking about Nassim Nicholas Taleb's The Black Swan.
Yeah, this is a book that, it kind of shakes you up a little bit, makes you question how much you actually know about the way things work, how often we all get caught off guard by stuff we never saw coming.
For sure. And right at the heart of it all is this concept of, well, he calls it the Black Swan event, those big monumental surprises, totally unexpected. But then, the moment they happen, suddenly everybody's like, oh yeah, that was bound to happen.
Right. It's so obvious in hindsight. And the name itself, Black Swan, that's just a brilliant way to get the point across. Think about it. For centuries, everyone in the West, they just assumed, okay, swans, they're white. End of story. Nobody questioned it. Then, bam, they find these black swans over in Australia. Boom! One single discovery just blows this whole long-held belief out of the water.
It really shows you how easily our past experiences can trap us into thinking we know more than we do, right? Especially when it comes to those rare things, the things that don't happen often. But when they do, man, they make a huge impact. And Taleb's argument is that these Black Swan events, these are the things that really shape history, shape our individual lives, way more than all the everyday stuff we usually spend our time thinking about. So what we're going to do today is break down this whole concept, see if we can pull out some practical stuff you can actually use in your own life.
Definitely. And I think a good starting point is really defining what we mean by a black swan, right? Taleb lays out these 3 key characteristics to look for.
So first off, it's got to be an outlier, completely outside of what you'd normally expect. Nothing in your past experience could prepare you for this. It's a genuine shock to the system.
Totally. Think about it like, I don't know, the invention of the smartphone back in the early 2000s. Could you have really predicted the impact it was going to have on everything, communication, how we shop, just like our whole daily life? Probably not, based on what we knew back then. And then the second thing, it's got to have a massive impact. We're not talking about some little surprise here. We're talking about something with huge consequences, either good or bad.
Huge. And the third part, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think, is what he calls this retrospective predictability, the narrative fallacy. As soon as something happens, we're already scrambling to make sense of it, right? We start telling ourselves these stories that make it seem like, oh, of course it happened that way. It was inevitable. Like, of course the housing market crashed. All the warning signs were there.
It's fascinating, right? We have this deep need for things to make sense, for a good story. So we end up oversimplifying things, creating these nice, neat explanations for the past. But those explanations, they often completely ignore the role of pure chance, just random stuff happening.
So for you listening, a big takeaway here is don't just accept those easy explanations at face value. Really question them. Remember that chance plays a much, much bigger role than we often give it credit for. Things are rarely as predictable as we like to think they are.
Absolutely. And another trap we fall into, it's called the fallacy. Ludic, that comes from the Latin word for game. Basically, it's when we take the rules of a game, something like rolling dice where the probabilities are clear, and we try to apply those same rules to the real world. But in the real world, the risks, the possibilities, they're way more complex, way less predictable.
It's like assuming life's uncertainties are as clear-cut as the odds of winning a hand of poker or something. But the reality is, it's way messier than that. So remember that the real world doesn't play by the same neat and tidy rules as a controlled game.
And then, of course, we have good old confirmation bias, right? We naturally gravitate towards information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore stuff that challenges them. That can make us really blind to potential surprises that just don't fit into our current worldview.
So what can you do about it? Well, one thing you can try is to actively seek out different perspectives. Make a conscious effort to listen to people who disagree with you, to consider information that might challenge what you think.
Exactly. And then the last one, he calls this epistemic arrogance. Sounds fancy, but it basically means we tend to overestimate how much we know. We get overly confident in our understanding of things, and we underestimate how much we just don't know. It's something even the smartest people can fall into.
So a big lesson here is to embrace a little bit of humility when it comes to your own knowledge. Be open to being wrong. Be willing to admit that there's always more to learn than you currently realize.
And this kind of leads into a really, really helpful distinction that Taleb makes. He talks about the difference between what he calls mediocristan and extremistan.
So Imagine like mediocristan. It's the land of averages, right?
Yeah.
Think about something like people's height. You got a big group of people. Even if you throw in someone who's super tall, it's not going to drastically change the average height of the whole group. Outliers exist, sure, but they don't really skew the overall picture. Standard statistics work pretty well in this world.
Exactly. Things are generally predictable within a certain range. But then you've got extremistan. This is where you get those rare events that have this disproportionate impact, and suddenly averages become kind of meaningless.
Imagine you take a group of people with, let's say, average wealth, and then you throw in a billionaire. Suddenly, the average wealth of the group explodes, but that number doesn't really reflect the reality of most people in that group. Or think about book sales. You have a few mega bestsellers that just completely dominate the market, while most books sell way, way less.
And what's crucial is that so much of our modern world, the important stuff like finance, tech, social trends, it all operates in this extremistan realm. But we keep trying to understand it using tools designed for mediocristan, which can be really dangerous because it leaves us totally unprepared for those Black Swan events. So a practical question to ask yourself is, what kind of world am I dealing with here? Am I in a situation where averages are reliable, or is this a world where one unexpected event could change everything?
That awareness can really shift how you think about risk and opportunity in different areas of your life. If you're an extremistan, just relying on past data, expecting things to stay within a certain range, that can be a really risky way to approach things.
So, okay, if predicting these Black Swan events is so tough, what are we supposed to do? Well, Taleb offers some strategies for navigating this unpredictable world.
First and foremost, you got to acknowledge the uncertainty. Just accept that unexpected stuff is going to happen. Don't get too attached to forecasts, especially in those complex areas of life. Plans change, things go wrong. That's just part of it.
Yep. And instead of trying to predict exactly what that unlikely event will be, shift your focus to the potential consequences. Think about those what-if scenarios, both good and bad. Try to understand the range of possible impacts.
It's also about building robustness into your life. Create systems that can withstand those shocks, like having an emergency fund for when unexpected expenses pop up, or diversifying your skills in your career so you're not totally reliant on one specific thing, or even just building strong relationships, having people you can lean on when things get tough. It's about having that buffer, that safety net.
Absolutely. But it's not just about protection, right? Taleb also talks about positioning yourself to actually benefit from positive Black Swans, from those unexpected good things that come your way. It's about being open to new opportunities, being flexible enough to seize them when they arise.
He uses the term optionality. Basically, the idea is that the more paths you have available to you, the more likely you are to stumble upon a positive Black Swan. Experiment with different things, even small bets, and then be ready to scale up if something unexpectedly takes off.
And then finally, there's what he calls the barbell strategy. It's a way of managing risk that involves being super conservative in some areas while taking calculated risks in others.
So maybe you keep a big chunk of your money in really safe, low-risk investments to protect yourself from major losses. But then you also set aside a smaller portion to invest in things that are higher risk, but also have the potential for higher rewards.
Right. It's about protecting yourself from the downside while still leaving room to benefit from the upside, even if that upside is a long shot.
So as you can see, the Black Swan really gives you this whole different framework for understanding the world and navigating all the uncertainty. It pushes us to move away from this illusion that we can predict everything and to embrace a mindset that's more about being prepared and being adaptable.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway for me, and I think for anyone on a personal growth journey, is that we need to embrace uncertainty as a fact of life. We need to be aware of our own biases, those mental shortcuts that can lead us astray, and we need to focus on building resilience and optionality rather than wasting energy trying to predict things that are ultimately unpredictable. So take a look at your life, at the different areas you're focused on. Ask yourself, is this more like mediocristan or extremistan? How does that change how you think about risk and opportunity?
That's such a good question. And I think ultimately it's about creating a life that can not only weather the storms, the unexpected stuff that inevitably comes up, but also to be able to benefit from those surprising opportunities that might come knocking.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the Black Swan.
It's been a pleasure talking about this with you. We hope this has given you some things to think about, some concrete steps you can take. Be sure to stay tuned for our next deep dive. And if you found this helpful, please do like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow.